Hello, fellow map makers. Welcome to another live map making session with campaign cartographer and yours truly, Ralph Sherman of Profantasy Software. Please let me know whether you can hear me, whether the sound is fine, and whether we can properly proceed with our mapping session. Yes, thank you very much. Everything seems to be working fine. I'm back from Gen Con and I'm over the jet lag and exhaustions that usually sets in. Oh, someone says I'm mute. Jeremy says I'm mute. No, my sound doesn't seem to indicate that I'm mute at all. Yeah, Sue can still hear me. Must be your connection somehow, Remy. Sorry about that. All right. I'm back from Gen Con, and I'm sorry for being a little bit earlier than usual here today, but that's because I've got some family stuff going on that I need to get to later, and so I didn't have quite the time to be as late as usual. It's might be convenient for some users in other parts of the world. Just for the Americans, it's usually a bit problematic, but we'll hope you'll manage. What do I want to do today? I do want to take a basic look at the campaign cartographer interface. I had some requests for that both at Gen Con and on the Profantasy forum for some more basic video stuff, and I thought this might be a good opportunity to take a relaxed look at all the different parts of the campaign cartographer interface and perhaps chop it up into little pieces afterwards, make little videos that can be linked from the website and may just be helpful little nuggets for people who are looking to start out with the program and the interface. And so we'll take a look at how that goes. My apologies for all the old-timers for whom I might be covering much familiar stuff, but I hope there's the occasional thing in there that may of use to you, and you can always point out things I'm doing wrong or forget to mention, which should be included in the video, and I'll try to take care of that. As always, if you have any questions or things to point out, please put them in the chat, and with Sue's and everybody's help, we'll try to help with the questions. Okay, as also, if you do like the videos we are producing, please give the YouTube channel a like and a subscribe, and comment on the videos afterwards is also a good help for making the videos more popular in the eyes of YouTube and sharing them to more people. All right, so let's see where we go. The campaign cartographer interface. I'm going to look at parts in step by step and try to point out what is accessible through all the different parts and what is listed there. I'll not be able to go into all details of all the commands in the separate sections, but I think I'll try to give an overview what's available where. And to start out, let's look at the screen tools. That's the function which allows you to move stuff around and change the interface. Might be the first thing you want to do, especially if you're looking to increase the size of buttons or move stuff around to make the interface suit your preferences or your needs, and so this might be the first thing. It also gives us an overview of how everything is called and where it is located to start out. And that first thing is the screen tools button down here, the little hammer, the little tool that allows us to work on the interface to set it to our preferences. Clicking that brings up the screen tools dialog. And the first and most obvious thing is you can change the icon size here. I've set it to medium, and convenient size for larger screens might be larger icons. So you can click that and then click OK. and you see all the buttons change their size. I like to have it on medium here on the video screen, but because otherwise not all the buttons are available. So let's switch it back, or let's just show the small icons for the change. There you can see they on a big screen like I have here, they start to get very small and hard to see, especially for old eyes like mine. Or sometimes you might need the X large icons, which are big and chunky, but I certainly would need to maximize the program on my big screen to see them all. Click on here and let's go back to the medium size. You see the mention here, restart CC3. If you change this option, this is always a good recommendation, because sometimes the toolbars might get messed up and buttons are missing. It seems to be working fine here, so I'll not necessarily have to restart CC3, but it's general. If you see anything odd after changing the displays and the layout of the buttons, do just close down CC3 Plus and open it up again. Okay, that's the buttons. Next up are the different toolbars. These are listed up here in this list, and the little buttons allow me to turn them on and off and display where they are. For example, the status bar, that's the one on top. I can click on the little square dot, on the arrow shows me where it can be located. It can be on top, it can be on the bottom, or it can be turned off. If I, for example, set it to the bottom, I click OK, then the status bar, which is this one down here, goes to the bottom of the screen. Very simple. Next up is the color bar. You see it's on the left. It's here on this size here, and that's one thing I often turn off, because that's my preferences. I choose colors through the color button on the status bar and not through the color bar. So I tend to turn the color bar off just to have more screen space for other stuff. Let's have a look. There it's gone off here, and I use this color button up here to change the color in my drawing. Then we do have the two right toolbars. You can see them here. I'll get to what they contain later. The same with the left toolbars. Those are these two bars here on this side. Then we have the scroll bars. These are these here, which lets you use the typical Windows scrolls to move around with the map. Also a thing I tend to turn off because I just don't use it. I find them a bit too slow for my liking. So I usually campaign cartographer zooming tools to get around the map, and again turn off the scroll bars just to have more screen space available. Next up is the file toolbar. This is the one up here where you can save and print and load new maps and change between the add-ons. Then we do have a couple custom icon bars, 2 and 3. These are extra icon bars you can turn on for your display, but they are normally empty, except I think one is used by the CSUAC collection of symbols, but not this one. See, this one has shown up here and it's completely empty. I'm not gonna go into how to fill this with your custom icons and stuff in this session. That's advanced stuff. Let's have a look at the custom icon bar 3, and I think yes, there you can see certain buttons will show up for the user collection of third-party icons and symbols. And that's been used for that. That's why the buttons are on that. But that's not something I have usually enabled because it's third-party content. And finally, and very importantly, we have the symbol toolbar. Well, not quite finally. That's the symbol catalog. The final thing. The symbol toolbar is this toolbar up here, the second one on top, where you can switch between different catalogs. We'll get to it in a minute. And finally now is the symbol catalog. That's here on the left, which cannot move around. It just has a checkbox. And normally you should not disable that because symbols are an essential part of the campaign cartographer interface, and you want that visible. If you sometimes, depending on your installation, or especially older installations, you might experience that your symbol catalogs are on the right side, and that's actually an indication of that something has gone wrong with your installation. If that happens to you, do reinstall your software and use run as admin to install it. That's usually the most common problem, that your installation doesn't have proper rights for the installation. But that's just a side remark. All right, and that's everything you can choose from the toolbar, from the screen tools dialog, and that way you can set up your interface here. Okay, next up, let's take a look at our drawing window. That's the stuff where the actual map happens and all of the drawing, the big one here in the center. It seems to be unremarkable at first, but there's some option for that, because as you might see, it is a separate window. You can see the Windows icons up here to close it, but if I try to close it, it will show me that in Campaign Cartographer I cannot close the only window on your drawing, which already indicates that I have multiple of them. And here I can minimize it and set the size. And how do I get, or minimize actually is this one here, and bring it back up. And you can actually have multiple drawing windows in your interface. If you go to View, Windows, do a new window, and draw a rectangle. And here we are with a second drawing window, which can have some neat functions. For example, I could use this as an overview map. See, make this small, make this one larger. And then if I set this one as the active one, I can zoom into certain spots on the small map. And the zoom will actually appear on the other window. Let's actually do this as the active window. And this way I see the whole map. And now I can, without having to zoom out here first, just go in and see, zoom to this space. What we have to do, we have to have the other one as active first. And then we should probably actually resize it so it shows the whole other map. So keep this as active, use zoom window, zoom into the section you want to see, and the big map will switch to this. Might be useful in some certain applications or maps, especially if you're working on a very large map and have a lot of window space to spare. It's just something I wanted to show you what you can do in this drawing window. And for now, I'll just close that and maximize the main drawing window again. This is the usual way you would normally work in the drawing window. All right, so that's the drawing window. Next up, let's have a look at the top of our interface. First off, there's the menu. I'll not go into the different menus here at this point. I want to take a look at the different toolbars and stuff. So let's first take a look at the status bar. That's the one here, and status bar because it shows us the current status of the map. We do have several spaces. First off is the coordinate space. This is just a sec. Sue just made me aware that I don't have the cursor prompt on, so I should probably do that so I can actually see this better. And see floating. Yeah, I see. This is the floating prompt here. This would turn this floating prompt on, which shows me what my current command is, what I'm doing at the cursor and not only at the command line. Yeah, let's leave that on just so, because that's normally enabled by default. So people see that when I start out when they start a new map. Cursor. If I move the cursor around, you see that my coordinate changes up here, especially now, but only if I'm over the drawing window. And what the coordinate option here shows me is where am I located. But there's different options that you can go through by clicking on this space. Basically, this one is turn it off. See, no coordinates is shown. If I click again, I get that just the T, and that means it is the absolute coordinates. If I go down here to the lower left corner, you'll see that we'll get close to 0. And if I turn on the grid, I should also be able to just we should turn on cursor snap. It doesn't quite work here. I just wanted to show you that it goes to 0, 0 exactly, but I would have to choose a command for that. So let's turn off grid here for the moment, but you can see that the cursor or the coordinates get close to 0 moving down here. And up here, we are getting towards 500 by 400, which is the extent of the map. So if I go here, see we're going into negative for the X coordinate, and down here negative for the Y coordinate. And this just gives me a general idea where I am on the map. If I click once more, I get the add coordinates. This is relative coordinates. This will show me my coordinates relative to the last point I clicked. If I, for example, choose a drawing command, draw a line, click here, and then the coordinate will show me how far away from that point I first clicked am. Also very useful in seeing how far I'm drawing something. Also very useful, but less used, at least by me, is the polar coordinates. These show the angle and distance from the last point I've clicked. So if I'm down here, we'll have an angle close to 0, because straight to the right is 0 angle in the campaign cartographer's coordinate system. If I go up to 90 degrees, we'll be at 90. Up here, 180 degrees, down here to 170. And the second number here in the list shows me the distance in drawing units. So if you need to know the exact distance from point to point, this is the most useful coordinate to show. Because the other shows you the distance horizontally and vertically separately. Alright, so the normal setting I have on, if I bother setting it back to something, is the absolute coordinates. Then we do have the sheet indicator. Basically, this shows me the current sheet I'm working on. Also very important and useful to keep an eye on. Also clicking it will bring up the Sheets and Effects dialog. Very handy. Was, I think, the most common way to access the Sheets catalog. Then we have the current drawing color. Also clicking that brings the Select Color dialog, which is my current normal way to select colors. Then we have the line width. So you can set it through here. Then we have the current layer we are working on. And you can bring up the layer dialog and freeze and hide layers through here. The currently selected line style. Solid is the most common line style, but sometimes for roads and similar things we'll want a different line style. And finally the fill style. And we can bring that up as well. And there we do have bitmap, fills and brush patterns and different ways to different bitmap fill styles to show. And if I do something like change a symbol catalog to structures, you'll see the current changes to the current settings on that displayed up here in the status bar. For example, we are now on the layer structures, and the color has changed to red. If I go to vegetation, I'll switch to the vegetation layer, and the green color and so on. So this always gives me an impression of what my current settings are for my drawing, and therefore it's quite handy to have an eye on. So much for the status bar. Next up is my file toolbar, very basic and convenient, but not all of the buttons are used all the time. First off are the file manipulation and print buttons. We have new map icon, probably my most used button in these videos, or at least always at the start. Open new files, save the current files, and print. Always buttons in Campaign Cartographer have their default function by left-clicking them, but right-clicking them gives you usually a choice of related commands. For example, if I right-click the new map button, I can either simply create a new map based on the same template as I've recently used, or select a new template. Left-clicking brings up the new drawing wizard. Same of open gives me the option to browse directly, open without any previews. This is actually also something I've not realized, and is very handy because often I don't want a preview because it takes a little bit of time to show a preview, and by just using open without preview, you can skip that little delay that you get. Also, if you're saving something as a bitmap or just you want to save a section of the map, you can do that directly by right-clicking the save button. If you left-click it or save as, you can also choose these options through the file type and stuff, but you can also shortcut that by right-clicking the icon. Next up in the section are the properties and nodes related to the map. First off is the drawing properties. This brings up the current style of the map, what sheet text goes on, the default symbol scale, and so on. You can do stuff with your color palette. Don't want to go into the details here, but it's all the drawing properties. You can also directly access the map nodes through the next button. These are some functions that happen when you open the map or create a new map from that template. But you can also put in your own notes in here, like the author and additional things you just want to keep separate, not directly visible, but attached to the map. You can also link with file and link with map. These will just bring up the usual stuff, the same from the menu. You can choose a file and create a hotspot, and then clicking on this will open the appropriate file in the map. Let's undo this. Next up, this is a function which I rarely use, and that's going back in my list of opened maps and forward. For example, if I wanted to go back and open my previous map, I could click this, and this is the same map because I've had that up several times, but here I get to another map in my file history of Campaign Cartographer, and this can be handy. And going back to where I was working on, I'm just going click next drawing. Then we have the bookmark functions, something I haven't used in ages because I haven't been creating large collections of related maps, but here you can create a list of bookmarks of different maps. Say you're working on all the different maps for your game world, and if you've got a big selection like the community atlas, then you can create your bookmarks here that link to other maps easily. You can search through these, and very handy function. I'm not entirely sure right now, but I think Remy can tell me whether there is actually a bookmark file set up for the community maps. But you could also check that out by checking the community atlas available from the forum. Here you can go through the different bookmarks or even search for text within all the maps of the bookmark maps, also very handy if you're looking for a certain city which might not have its own map, but might just be labeled in one of the maps. You can search through all the text in the bookmark maps in here. Yeah. Okay, Mirami says no bookmarks. Oh, because it's very individual, tailored to the individual using the maps, which makes sense. But the atlas is indexed for the search feature, so that is very handy. So you can use the find in files function on the community atlas. And Sue has linked the atlas from the commands. Thank you very much, Sue. And then we have the big list of all the different add-ons installed in Campaign Cartographer. Here you can see what is available in your installation, what you have installed. Once you've installed a certain add-on, it will pop in, except for the first three. Dungeon Designer and City Designer are always listed because the base program has some dungeon and city features, and therefore we've got the buttons in there. But everything after that will only pop up if you've got the specific add-on installed. For example, if you want to access the tools of character artists without actually creating a character artist map, you can click the character artist button, and then you'll see that some commands here show up and change for character artist maps. Normally it's just better to start a new map, because then you also have the map tools and everything defined, the bitmap fills that you need for the specific maps. But if you do need to have a look at the interface of the different add-ons, you can just click these here. You can also right click them to just load up an example from the specific add-on, and that can also be handy to have a look at what is available there. One little mention which creates some confusion sometimes, and I'm sure to fix in CC4, is that symbol set 1 and 2 don't have a button. That's because they introduced just new styles and symbols for Campaign Cartographer and Dungeon Designer respectively. Back in the day, we thought it wasn't necessary to create buttons for them, and haven't actually added any to the menu or to the file toolbar since then. And sometimes people think because they're not listed, they're not correctly installed. That's not the case. They simply don't have buttons on here. The buttons start with symbol set 3. Then the different map packs or source maps. That's what the word I was looking for. Source maps, products, source maps, castles, temples, and cities. The World War II Interactive Atlas. And finally, the 2 token packs for virtual tabletops 1 and 2. The token treasury. And that's the file toolbar. And then we come to the toolbars that change with the add-on you are using. See, you've got now here the catalog toolbar, which is this, or a symbol toolbar, which is here listing the different symbol sets for Cosmographer. So if I click that, it will load up the symbols for that's the floors in Starship deck plans. Or if I go to Dungeon Designer, clicking this will load up the furniture symbol catalog. And this will always depend on what type of map you're drawing. For overland maps, you get the borders and mountains and structures. For dungeons, you get all the different types of floor plan symbols. City Designer gives you the different house types. Character Artist goes through the different things you need for a character portrait. Dioramas, perspectives, Cosmographer, symbol sets, and so on. And that's why if you go to symbol set 4, which is a dungeon, actually it doesn't change the toolbar here. Haha, okay. So there's the symbol sets sometimes don't do that, but here symbol set 4 does, and it gives you the selection of dungeon tools again, because it basically uses a very similar setup as the Dungeon Designer 3. Okay, same thing here with the actually no, sorry. These symbols don't have right-click options, so simply does nothing if you right-click on them. Another thing you see changing with the switching with the different add-ons is the top icons on the left toolbars. That's because these access the various drawing tools matching the type of map you're drawing. For example, if you're going to an overland map like this one, it will give you buttons for landmass, for the coast and sea, for contours, for rivers, for different terrain tiles, for the roads, and so on. And right-clicking these will always bring out the large selection or the full selection of these types of tools. Left-clicking will usually give you a default tool. See, left-clicking the landmass tool will just start the landmass tool and allow you to, for example, draw an island here. Right-clicking will give you all the different land drawing tools to choose from. Same with the rivers. Left-clicking will just start a river at the default size. Right-clicking will give you all the different river options available. So if you know you would just want to do a basic thing, left-click on the button, and then if you do want to choose something specific, do a right-click on the button. There's some stuff that is common to most of the styles or the map types. The grid button brings up the grid overlay options for the map. The two tools, the cross tools, brings up all the drawing tools for the current style. So you see the rivers and the terrain and the land options all listed together. This button, the symbol style toggle, will toggle through different styles in the type of map. We're in the drawing tool types, drawing in the overland map type, and clicking that will bring up the different styles. For example, here we switch into the Mike Schley overland style. Clicking it again. Little extra thing. This is because I have the extract settlement selected, and that is not available in the next style. That brings up the problem here that I get an empty thing. So let's grab something that is available. Everything, the border style symbols, the next style selected is the black and white Mike Schley stuff. That doesn't have the Aztec symbols, that's why it showed up empty. Clicking again, I get to hand-drawn vector style in black and white, then the color version, then we are to the old CC3 overland style, and the very old overland vector style from CC2 Pro. And then that's the Heaven Wheeling style, and at some point we're going to be back to the Mike Schley style here. And it will cycle through all the different ones. You can also right-click on the button to show them directly here and say we wanted to go to our Heaven Wheeling overland style. I could just click that, and then I have these available. And then I can switch between these here to get all the different catalogs for the Heaven Wheeling style. Or go back to the Mike Schley overland one and load up the vegetation catalog that was currently selected. The button to the left there gives me an overview of all the available catalog settings, basically all the ones linked through the symbol toolbar up here, and I can pick from those. Then you'll see that we'll have a little break here, indicating that we're getting into a different type of commands, and here we're getting in the display stuff. So this brings up the sheet and effects dialog, where you can hide different sheets and show them again, also activate and deactivate sheet effects. And the other one is the display speed option, which gives you control over how stuff is displayed, how quick, if you want to save on display time, you can do stuff here for the display speed button. next break, and then we get into all the editing tools like undo and erase stuff and move stuff around, explode stuff into parts, rotate things. These are all tools that allow you to tinker with existing entities on the map. And then the final section down here is the group of node editing, where you have control over individual nodes in a polygon. For example, click the node edit, grab a node in an existing entity and move that around. Not something you want to do at this point, move it that far away, but you'll see what I mean. Undo as you undo this. Also do things like a numeric edit, meaning depending on what you're editing, have control over specific things like nodes in an entity, or that was this polygon I selected. If I grab the text, it will be context sensitive and offer me the option to edit the text I'm trying to edit. Then we've got some specific stuff down here like cropping lines to an entity and breaking stuff. I'm not going to go into the details of these options. These will be the same for all map types we are drawing, because we are in basic editing functions in here, and perhaps we'll be able to take a closer look at these in another session. But for now, let's switch over to the right toolbars here before we get to the symbols themselves, because those are basic CAD tools. These are all independent of the map type and drawing style we are using, so they will always be the same. And they basically give you the options to do basic functions that you would expect to do in any drawing, like the zoom options up here. These let you zoom in and out, and my favorite type of zoom is usually, if I want to go somewhere, I'll use the drawing zoomed window. I click 2 points and the interface will zoom to exactly that point. And if I want to go around the map, I usually first zoom out and then zoom back into to the section I want to go to. This is refresh of the screen. If you've done some editing which are not displayed on the map yet, you can just refresh. This is zoom back to the previous, and by just clicking that, you can always switch between the two last selected zoom positions. And then we have the entity order control, basically the drawing order of things. Here you can move stuff back and forth in the order they are displayed on the screen. Importantly, this will only work on the current sheet, so if you want to move something on another sheet, you'll have to use the commands for that. But here, if I, for example, I place let's go in say, I'm just going to grab a tree here, and I want to move it behind the swings. I can just go move it center back. That will move it to the very back of the current sheet. And okay, yes, I've placed it somewhere. Yeah, I see what I'm doing. I'm already on the sheet problem. That's because vegetation symbols from the Mike Schley style go on their own symbols trees sheet, and therefore changing the drawing order with that doesn't do anything. What I need to do is I need to move this to the symbol sheet where all the symbols in the style are on, and now I can send it to the back on that symbol sheet, and it will be behind the swings. Same center front, and I can also put it behind or in front of specific entities with these commands. And then we get to the basic drawing commands of the CAD engine, like draw a line, draw a rectangle, draw polygons, draw arcs and circles. I'm not going to go through these, but these let you all just create basic things in the map. Most importantly, perhaps the text. There's a text properties button here, which lets you set the font and the size of the text you want to do, and then add the actual text with this button here. Perhaps a little extra thing, if I choose extract properties here to set my current text settings to the one here, and something not that often used on an overland map is the number label. I can start that, say I want to start with the number 1 and just then place the number somewhere, 1, and then this will count up automatically. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can keep going and just placing down the text in this number label. It's very handy for dungeon tools or labels on city maps, but it might be also occasionally handy on an overland map. Let's undo these. There we are. And finally down here, the modifiers for when you're drawing stuff. This is stuff I usually use through the function keys on the map, because you've got them, know them by heart. And so for example, if I wanted to start a new river section and wanted to connect this to this river, I can do so by the on modifier. That's this one here, click this icon, then I'll get the little pick cursor and click on here, and then my new river will be exactly on the existing river there. See. The only thing, what I'm gonna do is normally I start the command and use F9 for on. That's my one of the two I always know by heart, and the other one is F5 that connects to the endpoint of an entity or a node in an entity. Endpoint modifier would be this one here. Then we've got some other stuff like sometimes the midpoint, which would be in the center of an entity, center point, in the center of an area. 90 degrees angle to the entity you're selecting. And these are very handy if you, oops, that was erasing too much stuff. I just wanted to erase my new rivers there. And that's everything on the right toolbars. Was the question there whether any keyboard shortcuts to pan, and actually I'm not entirely sure. Let's have a look. You can access more of the commands to the menu, through the menu, and they often show the shortcuts. But I don't think, see, if I take a look at the modifiers, tools, now I'm actually drawing, it's there, there you see the shortcuts, for example, jogging frames for your polygons and paths, but I don't think pan has a text shortcut. Somebody correct me, I rarely use it, so I don't know it off the top of my head. Alright, so much for that. Let's look at the very important symbol catalog here. This is something I often adjust to my liking, and that's what the options button here is for. Normally it's just the list of symbols here. See the typical thing, scrolling down shows you all further symbols, and you've got the little plus icon here. You can click on that to display all the symbols in this little group or collection there. If you've got an R underneath there, it means it's a random selection from the collection. But you might want to have difference. For example, you might want the catalog to be larger. And there you can simply define the size of your catalog entries here. And also, which I also often do, I switch it to 2 columns, which simply shows me, especially if I'd rather make it smaller than larger, say I'm at 9 by 70, it does show me quite a few more symbols by default. which saves on the scrolling and is just in general very handy. Then you can also right click on this, and this will just open up the whole catalog over the whole window size, and you see most of the symbols here. This is also very handy, especially since if I now pick a specific symbol, it will close that again and allow me right away to place the symbol on the map. And you can also, in the options, do other stuff like expand all the collections so you see them all at the same time, especially if you're looking at a very specific symbol that might be hidden in a collection. So it allows you to see them all without opening up the collection individually, and disable some options for advanced symbols, which I'm not going to go in there. The only thing I'm going to show is I'm going to show the symbol size. It might be somewhere handy, because it shows the size of this symbol in drawing units. So might be useful to know how large the symbol is. Yeah. And that should be enough for the symbol options in here. We've got two more buttons here. This is simply the right one, is with the folder icon. It simply allows you to pick a new catalog to show here. More specifically, choose the file instead of just switching through the different options up here. And the other one can be very essential because it shows you all the symbol definitions in the map. So if I press this, you'll see instead of showing me the Mike Schley symbols, it shows me here the maps that I've already placed in the map. And that can be handy if you know there's a symbol in the map, but it might be from a different style which you've not currently selected, and you want to place that specific symbol again. You can just click that and pick the symbol and place it just like any other. So much for the symbol catalog, and we are getting towards the end of our interface. So we have the bottommost bar, and that's the command line. And there you'll see everything listed when you're starting a new command. For example, if I choose the copy command, it prompts me to select entities. So I can now click on the Sphinx and this little symbol here, and it shows me how many I have picked. Same, basically, expanded version on that is on the command prompt here is shown at the cursor, because I set that as active at the start of the session. And at the command prompt, it gives me a little bit more information. So that's why it's specifically handy to new users. It says click on edges to select things, and so on. You blink area to start the selecting window, and so on. And D for do it, and then it prompts me to copy from a specific point, select the point to copy from, and then place the point where I want to copy to. All this is visible both in the command line here and expanded version on the cursor on the command prompt. Then we've got some extra buttons here, which give some additional interface options. I've already shown the screen tools at the very start. We can set our grid here. Let's make the grid a little bit stronger so we can see it. And this gives me makes the cursor and placement jump from grid point to grid point. More handy novel for dungeon floor plans than from overland maps. We've got the orthogonal button, which ensures that the next point placed from a previous one is always horizontally or vertically the same. Snap means whether I actually adhere to the grid shown. I can show the grid but not have snap on. That means the snap will not be used, but I can see it. If I turn on snap, the grid will be used for placing stuff. Attach will attach previous points to entities. Here you can see I've got no snap on, so that means snaps from point to point, but also the attach. That means if I click an existing entity, the viewpoint will be on the entity I've selected. And finally, locked, that enables me to lock and unlock groups. If I've grouped things, but I do want to move stuff or edit stuff individually, I can just temporarily unlock groups, and the group options will be ignored for the time being. Can also be very handy. All right, so there we are, and we in the final thing I wanted to mention, that is the menu. This is up here and basically gives you another way to access all the different commands that are also available through the various toolbars. And even more options. There's more on the menu than is possible to show on the different toolbars, because the simply text allows for more space, and so you'll see these different sub-menus to show the different options. I'm not going to go through all the different options here, just the base menu. File, again, is all the stuff related to printing and saving and opening maps and drawing properties of the current drawing. Edit gives you all the stuffs that lets you change and move existing stuff in the map. View is the zooms, redraws, and other options. Draw is creating new entities in all the various types. Tools is more things that don't fit the other categories quite nicely, like groups and sheets and hyperlinks. Symbols gives you all the different options, most importantly accessing the symbol manager, which gives you the symbol manager dialog and the way to access all the different symbol definitions in the map in more detail. Then we've got a menu entry that changes with the map type. So for example, if I go to dungeon, you'll see the overland entry will switch to dungeon and give you all the dungeon related options. Same if I go to cities, I get the city menu entry. Info is info on entities in the map and properties of those entities. Info on the map itself is all under the info menu, and then we've got the help menu with access to the Tome of Ultimate Mapping, the user manual, the quick start date, and also, if you need it in About CC3, your serial number will be listed. And finally, which is you often might not see if you don't have a tablet installed and attached to your computer at some point, that menu option will probably not be visible. It turns on when Campaign Cartographer detects a graphics tablet, and that will allow you to turn the tablet on and off, basically. All right, and that's the whole interface I've gone through. And I think that's going to be enough for today. I'm just a few minutes short of the hour, and I will appreciate every minute I can shave off this time to get to my family function. And it's hot and I need to clean up a little bit before I'm presentable. So those few extra minutes will be helpful. If you've got any questions still and haven't posted them in the chat, always you can comment on the video later or comment on the forum thread on the video in the Fantasy forum. I will be able to answer anything there as well. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching and listening and your interactions. And as a little reminder, please do give us a like and a subscribe on the channel. Otherwise, just see you again next week. Thank you very much. All the best and keep up the mapping. Bye bye.